Hey everyone. In today's video, I want to show you how I record guitars, and I want to show you how my approach to recording guitars, what do I look for, what I try to avoid, and basically how I record guitars so that it can sit in the mix in the context of the whole band. Many times we tend to dial in our guitar tones that it sounds really great by itself, but then when you add in the rest of the bands, you add drums, bass, vocals, keys, another guitar, the guitar gets lost in the mix. So I'm going to show you my approach whenever I have a band coming in to do a retro rock and roll session. And in this case, I have this band that I did last year called Thundersun. And the song is called Protector of the Galaxy. There's one guitar player here, but there's a lot of elements. That's why I picked this song, because there's keys as well. And all of these instruments are fighting to be heard, and you have to put them in their own frequency space. And guitars is very important if you want it to cut through or if you want it to be there. So I'm going to play just a little bit of it first. If you want to watch the whole video, I'll link the video in the description below. But I'm just going to play a little bit here, and then I'm going to talk to you about my workflow when it comes to recording guitars. Here we go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just solo the guitars just so you can kind of hear it. And then I'm going to talk to you how I dialed in this tone. All right, so the guitar is over here, and I'm just going to bypass. Actually, I'm going to leave all the processing that I do here because it's very subtle, the processing that I do. And then here, this Soldano plugin that I have here, this is just for visual reference. For this, I used my Friedman JE12 into a load box. But I'm going to use this Soldano plugin as a visual reference. There's no sounds coming out of this. This was all recorded and committed as I was tracking. And that's what I have to work with. So I want to make sure I get it right at the source. Okay, so let's listen to the guitars by itself. Okay, so by itself, it doesn't really have like big low end, top end. It's just there, and that's the point of when you're recording guitars. And what a lot of people that are recording guitars, like up and coming, or even like just recording in your room or your home studio or in a bedroom, they try to dial in guitars that it sounds so great by itself. Great low end, great mids, great top end, and it just sounds beefy and heavy. But then they forget that if you're going to play with a band, there's other instruments too. So if you have a lot of low end on your guitar, then the bass is going to get buried and the kick drums is going to get buried. If you have a lot of top end, then you're going to take away some of the vocals or the cymbals. So you have to know how to balance this. And this is my approach. And this is what I do. The first thing I do is I set all the dials to noon or 12 o'clock. So let's say that, we have something like this, right? And I do this if it's a real amp, and if I do this if it's an amp sim, like a modeler, like the Fractal, or, Helix or Quad Cortex or any guitar modeler out there. I set this at 12 o'clock. And the reason why I do this is because amp manufacturers, they want to have, or when they're dialing in their amps, they want their amps to sound good enough at 12 o'clock, because that's what a lot of guitar players or a lot of people that buy amps, they started with. Like they put it at 12 o'clock and then they start, dialing it in, messing around with it. But they want it to sound good at 12 o'clock. So I do the same thing. Then the next step is gain. And here's where a lot of people make a mistake. They put too much gain. And they'll have so let's say the overdrive here is your gain. They'll put it like this. I know this is visual, like I'm doing things visually, and they always say, oh, use your ears, use your ears. And that's true, use your ears. But there is a starting point. And I never go past 5 o'clock when setting in the gain, especially if it's a high gain amp. High gain amps do not need to be cranked up past 5 o'clock. So what I do is I start dialing in the gain and I'm having the guitar play. I'll say, play a little bit for me. And as they're playing, I'm dialing in the gain until I feel like it's sitting well, like it's good enough. Okay, it has enough bite, not too much that it starts to sound muddy and it starts to lose its articulations, especially if they're playing single notes. And let's say I reach 4.5, right? Like let's say, okay, and I say to them, okay, that sounds good. Keep playing for me, please. And they'll keep playing. And what I'll do is I'll dial it back just a little bit. And then I leave it there. And then if I need to adjust it later on, I'll adjust it later on. But that's my good starting point. So step 1, put all your knobs to 12 o'clock, noon. Step 2, dial your gain just enough that it starts to sound really, really good. And then you bring it back a little bit and never past 5 o'clock. And some will say, there are good arguments. They say, oh, but, use your ears and, what if the amp sounds good past 5 o'clock? Okay, fine, whatever. But for me, this is how I do it. I never had anyone complain about my how I dial in my guitar tones. Okay, next, now we look at the EQ section. And if you look at this EQ sections, I never leave this like this. When I'm looking at the EQ sections, the first part that I look at in this EQ section is the bass, or the low end. And amps, this is how all amps label it. They label it bass, middle, and treble. That's fine. So I look at this. Already I can see this has too much bass. It has too much low end. And it's going to take up a lot of the bass players' frequency spectrum. So I'll dial it back. And I dial it back a lot. I don't take it out all the way, but I take it, I'm probably like hanging around over here. And again, I'm having the guitar player, so I play a little bit for me, and I dial it back until it starts to sound a little thin, and that's okay, because again, this is a mid-range instrument, and it should sit in the mix. There's no reason for you to have so much bass or so much low end. Listen to this guitar with the bass and without the bass, okay? I'm going to play just by itself, and then I'm going to add in the bass. So you see how the guitar gets beefier, especially in rock music. The bass players, most of the time, is just emulating what the guitar's doing. So really what is going on here is that the bass is really adding the low end here. So you don't need it. So if you have a lot of low end, then it becomes very muddy, and you don't want that. Okay, next thing I do, mids. Mids I leave it at noon. I very rarely bump it up a little bit. Sometimes if I feel it, like it's not cutting through enough, then I bump it up a little bit, and I never take out mids. Never. I always leave it at noon, or I just add a little bit. Just a tiny, tiny bit. All right? And then treble. Treble, I add a little bit of treble, just a little bit, just to give it a little bit, just a little sheen, a little bit top end. And then you also have your presence and depth or resonance. And this one, I rarely touch it. And like on my Friedman amp, those two knobs are in the back of the amp. So I kind of like just forget it. And I just leave it at noon. You have enough to work with here. And that's it. That's how I dial in my guitar tones. It's quick. I commit to it, and then I move on. I hope you enjoy this. Until next time, happy mixing.